A seemingly calm political fundraising event suddenly became the nation's focal point when Melania Trump unexpectedly delivered a biting remark aimed directly at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Scattered laughter echoed briefly, but moments later, the room's atmosphere froze. Not because Crockett erupted in anger or engaged in a verbal sparring match, but because, just 17 seconds later, her attorney stood up from the table, pulled out a phone, and began preparing documents. No back and forth. No theatrics. She chose a path few politicians dare. A $100 million lawsuit filed in federal court. Silent, precise, cold as steel. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The Willard Hotel, an emblem of power and luxury in the heart of Washington, D.C. Under the shimmering light of crystal chandeliers, the grand ballroom gleamed as a stage for the political elite. White silk tablecloths, vibrant red roses, and champagne glasses clinking in the hands of senators and donors. Beneath the polished surface, handshakes carried strategic undertones, and wary glances passed between political rivals. Tension simmered in every breath. In the front row, Jasmine Crockett, the woman who had faced the fiercest House hearings, sat upright, her gaze sharp, her curly hair resting lightly on a deep blue suit. Not far away, Melania Trump, in a form-fitting white silk dress and the commanding poise of a former First Lady, approached the podium. No one in that room could have predicted that, in just a few short minutes, Melania's words would ignite a firestorm, transforming this venue, meant for fundraising calls and toasts, into a true political battlefield. The fundraiser, organized to support an education charity, drew the most powerful figures from both parties. But beneath the glamorous facade, political tensions boiled. Melania, as First Lady, was invited to speak to bolster her image during Donald Trump's second term. She stepped up to the podium, her high heels clicking on the polished wooden floor. Her low, Slovenian-accented voice resonated through the microphone, capturing the room's attention. She began with routine thanks, praising the donors and emphasizing the importance of education. But then, her tone sharpened. "We're here to talk about the future," Melania said, her eyes narrowing as they scanned the crowd. "But it's hard to move forward when some people only know how to cause chaos," shouting empty slogans to mask their mediocrity. A few chuckles rose from the corner where conservative donors sat. Melania paused, her lips curling into a thin smile. "They think being loud can hide their true nature, but I'm afraid, no matter how hard they try, trash is still trash." Murmurs spread, and all eyes turned to Crockett. Without naming her, everyone knew Melania was targeting the Democratic Congresswoman, who had publicly criticized the Trump administration's immigration policies and the inconsistency of Melania's Be Best image. Jasmine Crockett, seated in the second row, felt a jolt run down her spine. Her hands gripped the edge of her chair, but her face remained eerily calm. She was no stranger to attacks. As a black woman in Texas politics, she had faced slurs since the start of her career. But this time, the jab came from the First Lady, in front of hundreds of influential people and camera lenses. The crowd awaited her reaction. Some whispered, others hid smirks. A Washington Post reporter jotted notes quietly, while a donor at a nearby table muttered to a colleague, "Is she going to let that slide?" Crockett stood, slow but resolute. The room fell silent, save for the hum of the air conditioning. She walked down the aisle, her heels clicking steadily, her eyes locked on Melania. "Mrs. Trump," she said, her voice low but sharp as a blade. "If you want to talk about true nature, I suggest you look in the mirror first. Someone who relied on an immigration visa to climb to the top might want to be careful calling others mediocre." The room froze in stunned silence. A few coughed awkwardly, masking discomfort. Melania, still at the podium, gripped its edge, her lips pursed, but her eyes never left Crockett. Her thin smile vanished, replaced by a rare tension. The atmosphere grew stifling, as if everyone were witnessing a modern-day duel. A donor in the corner whispered to a companion, "She just brought up Melania's visa. This is about to blow up." An MSNBC reporter began recording, while another hurriedly tweeted, "Drama at the Willard." Crockett just clapped back at Melania. Crockett, not giving Melania a chance to respond, continued, "I'm not here for verbal games, Mrs. Trump. But if you want to play, I suggest you lawyer up." The razor-sharp remark froze the room. Melania, for the first time that evening, appeared off balance. She opened her mouth, but no words came. An aide, standing off stage, urgently signaled her to step down. Crockett returned to her seat, her gaze still fixed on Melania. The crowd began to murmur again, but this time, excitement rippled like a wave. A few clapped sporadically, but most remained silent, as if waiting for what would happen next. Melania, with her practiced icy composure, stepped down from the podium, but her eyes followed Crockett, as if memorizing every second of the confrontation. An event staffer rushed to the podium, attempting to redirect attention by introducing the next speaker, but no one cared. The evening's focus was now on two women, two opposing worlds, who had just sparked a battle the nation would soon be talking about. As the chandeliers in the Willard's grand ballroom dimmed, Melania Trump stepped down from the podium, her face maintaining its signature calm, but her hands tightly clutching a small white leather clutch, a rare sign of tension. The crowd was still abuzz after her clash with Jasmine Crockett, but few realized that behind Melania's sharp jab lay a far more complex story than a spur-of-the-moment outburst. What drove the First Lady, known for her reticence and avoidance of controversy, to target a powerful Democratic congresswoman like Crockett? Her motives were not just a slip of the tongue. They stemmed from personal pressures, old wounds, and a carefully calculated political strategy. Melania, once a young woman who left Slovenia to pursue a modeling dream, had always faced the scrutinizing gaze of the American public. Her immigration journey, particularly her EB-1 visa, often called the genius visa, had been a subject of heated debate. Many questioned whether a young model, however talented, truly met the extraordinary ability standard for the visa. Those criticisms, though years old, remained a thorn in her side. Jasmine Crockett, with her blunt and unyielding style, had recently brought this up in a congressional hearing, questioning the Trump administration's inconsistent immigration policies. If an immigrant can rise to the height of power, why block others? Crockett had said, a veiled jab at Melania, that the media widely amplified, striking a sensitive nerve for the First Lady. In Donald Trump's second term, Melania faced new pressures. No longer just a behind-the-scenes First Lady, she was expected to take a more active role, especially in shaping the administration's image. White House advisors, particularly a group close to Trump, pushed her to show more toughness against Democratic critics. A senior advisor, Rachel Klein, had said in a private meeting, Mrs. Trump needs to show she's more than a pretty face. A strong statement will make opponents think twice. Klein, a sharp strategist with platinum blonde hair and a cutting demeanor, believed Melania needed a moment to assert her authority, especially against figures like Crockett, who didn't hesitate to challenge the Trump family's power. That evening at the Willard, Melania had prepared a carefully edited speech with her team. Initially, she planned a vague comment about noisy politicians to indirectly target Trump's opponents. But as she stood at the podium, seeing Crockett's confident gaze from the audience, a spark of anger flared. Crockett's past criticisms of the EB-1 visa and her dismissal of Be Best as cliché in an interview flooded back. Melania, typically unshakable, veered off script. The trash is still trash line wasn't in the prepared remarks. It was a moment of unleashed frustration, but also a miscalculation. In Melania's mind, the jab was a way to reclaim control, to show she wasn't an easy target for mockery. But she hadn't anticipated Crockett's response, a woman forged in the crucible of Texas politics. Melania, accustomed to the fashion runway spotlight, wasn't a political warrior. She relied on Donald Trump or his team to handle public battles. This time, she'd stepped into dangerous territory, and Crockett's sharp, swift, and powerful comeback caught her off guard. As she left the podium, Melania was escorted backstage by Klein and another advisor, Mark Hensley. Hensley, a middle-aged man with steel-framed glasses and a low voice, whispered, "You went too far." Crockett's not the type to let this go. Melania, maintaining her calm exterior, gave a slight nod, but inwardly, she began to feel the weight of her actions. She knew her words weren't just a shot at Crockett, but a challenge that could bring bigger consequences. Meanwhile, a reporter near the stage had recorded the entire exchange, and the short video of the confrontation began spreading on social media, thrusting Melania into the eye of the storm. As the doors of the grand ballroom closed behind Jasmine Crockett, the crowd's murmurs still echoed in her mind. It was late, but the streetlights of Washington, D.C., streamed through the windows of the black SUV, carrying her back to her Capitol Hill apartment. Crockett sat in the back, hands clasped tightly in her lap, her gaze lost in the darkness. Melania Trump's jab, "Trash is still trash," was not just a cut at her honor, but a public declaration of war before the political elite. Yet Crockett, seasoned by years of facing slurs from her days as a public defender in Texas to her seat in Congress, was not one to let such an insult slide. In her mind, a plan was forming, not just to defend herself, but to send a powerful message. No one, not even the First Lady, could demean her without consequences. Crockett didn't head home. Instead, she directed her driver to her small office at the Rayburn House office building. There, under flickering fluorescent lights, she summoned her trusted legal team. By midnight, 3 were present: Vivian Carter, a veteran lawyer with over 2 decades of handling defamation cases, her silver hair tightly bunned and eyes sharp as steel; Marcus Tate, a young, passionate legal aide with a laptop always open to documents; and Aisha Brooks, a media strategist who helped Crockett win her Texas election. The cramped room's atmosphere was heavy, filled only with the clacking of keyboards and Carter's sighs as she reviewed notes from the Willard event. "Jasmine, this isn't just a personal insult," Carter said, her voice low and steady. "This is an attack on your credibility as a congresswoman." Melania knew that, and she chose to do it on camera. Crockett nodded, her eyes still burning, as if reliving the moment she faced Melania. "I don't need validation to feel my worth," she replied, her voice low but resolute. "But I won't let anyone, especially her, think they can tear me down without paying a price." Marcus, replaying the event video sent by a reporter, interjected, "We have proof. This video clearly shows she was targeting you." The whole room knew. The decision to file a lawsuit didn't come immediately. Crockett, though known for her bluntness, understood that suing the First Lady was a bold move that could harm her political career. For hours, she and her team debated fiercely. Aisha, with neatly braided hair and round glasses, warned, "You're taking on an entire political machine, Jasmine. The Trumps don't play fair." But Carter countered sharply, "That's exactly why we have to do this. If you let them win now, they'll think they can keep going." Crockett sat silently, flipping through a stack of notes, detailing past attacks she'd faced as a black woman in politics. Each time, she had risen, and this time would be no different. By dawn, the decision was made: a $100 million lawsuit, accusing Melania Trump of defamation, reputational harm, and emotional distress. The complaint, meticulously drafted by Carter with the precision of someone who'd won major cases, demanded not only compensation but a public apology and retraction. "We'll use this money for something big," Crockett said, her eyes lighting up. "If we win, I want to start a fund for legal education for kids who don't get a chance." Marcus, exhausted from the long night, nodded enthusiastically. "That'll be a knockout blow, not just to Melania, but to anyone who thinks they can dismiss us." The lawsuit's preparation moved at breakneck speed. Marcus contacted witnesses from the event, including a server who recorded the incident on their phone. Carter analyzed every frame of the video, pointing out how Melania deliberately looked at Crockett while speaking. Aisha, as the media strategist, planned to announce the lawsuit the next morning, ensuring major outlets like MSNBC and the New York Times broke the story first. "We need to shape the narrative before the White House does," Aisha stressed, her fingers typing rapidly to contact trusted reporters. In Crockett's mind, the lawsuit wasn't just about her. As a lawyer who had represented those abandoned by the system, she understood the value of standing up to the powerful. As a black woman, she knew Melania's insult wasn't just aimed at her but at others like her, those who fought twice as hard for a seat at the table. As dawn broke, Crockett stood before a mirror in her office, adjusting her blazer, and whispered to herself, "They picked the wrong opponent." At 8 a.m., the lawsuit was filed in federal court. The news spread like wildfire, with sensational headlines. Congresswoman Crockett sues Melania Trump for $100 million over defamation. As her team prepared for the legal battle, Crockett knew she was stepping into a fight bigger than herself. This was a battle for honor, respect, and those who had been dismissed. Melania, with all her power, likely didn't expect a single remark at an event to spark such a storm. When news of Jasmine Crockett's $100 million lawsuit broke, the White House descended into a rare state of chaos. In a small West Wing room, Melania Trump sat in a leather chair, her gaze fixed on the heavy curtained window where faint morning light seeped through. Her phone buzzed incessantly with notifications from news outlets: CNN, The Washington Post, even Fox News, all flashing headlines about the defamation suit. Melania, usually as composed as a statue, now showed a hint of tension in the way her fingers tapped the armrest. The jab at the Willard, meant as a fleeting outburst, had become a political storm she hadn't anticipated. Her advisory team, typically a well-oiled machine, was now divided, and the Trump administration faced an unexpected crisis. Rachel Klein, the strategic advisor with sleek blonde hair and a sharp demeanor, was the first to break the silence. "We need to control the narrative now," she said urgently, scrolling through an iPad with the latest articles. Crockett struck first, and the media's siding with her. Klein, who had encouraged Melania to project strength, now feared her advice had backed the First Lady into a corner. Mark Hensley, the legal advisor with steel-framed glasses and a calm voice, suggested a different approach. A public apology, even a formal one, could quash this before it reaches court, he said, though his eyes betrayed doubt that Melania would agree. Melania, in a pale gray cashmere sweater, didn't respond immediately. She turned her chair to face her advisors, her eyes icy. "I'm not apologizing," she said, her voice low but firm. "That woman attacked me first, not the other way around." She was referring to Crockett's earlier comments about her EB-1 visa and Be Best campaign during congressional hearings. For Melania, those criticisms weren't just political, they were personal, touching on her immigration past, a topic that always made her sensitive. But she hadn't expected a single event remark to escalate into a massive lawsuit, and now the world was watching her every move. The chaos wasn't confined to the meeting room. In the East Wing, Donald Trump, fresh from a campaign event, learned of the situation through viral tweets. He stormed into the Oval Office, still in his suit jacket, and immediately took to Twitter to defend his wife. "Jasmine Crockett is a loser, using my wife for cheap fame," he wrote. The tweet quickly racking up thousands of retweets and comments. But instead of calming the situation, this fueled the fire. Some advisors, including Klein, worried that Trump's intervention would turn the lawsuit into a partisan battle, complicating Melania's position further. In Melania's mind, the lawsuit was more personal than political. She was used to media scrutiny, from her modeling days to her time as First Lady. But this time, she felt cornered. In a rare moment, she recalled her early days in New York, facing whispers of being unworthy of Donald Trump. Those memories hardened her resolve not to back down. Yet she also knew the White House legal team, led by Hensley, was preparing a counter-strategy. They considered countersuing Crockett for exaggerating the incident, or seeking an out-of-court settlement to avoid a public trial. An unexpected encounter heightened the tension. In a secluded White House hallway, Melania crossed paths with Stephanie Wolkoff, a former close aide who had revealed details about her in a controversial book. Though no longer working together, Wolkoff maintained contact with some White House staff. "You're facing an opponent who won't back down," Wolkoff said softly but sharply. "Crockett isn't just suing for money. She wants honor." Melania, not responding, gave a slight nod, but the words lingered. Had she underestimated Crockett? Meanwhile, Melania's team began gathering information to weaken the lawsuit. They contacted witnesses from the Willard, seeking alternate video angles to argue that Melania's remark wasn't directly aimed at Crockett. But the viral social media video, with Melania's clear glance toward Crockett, made this difficult. Crockett proposed a media strategy, release a statement clarifying that Melania was speaking about noisy politicians in general, not anyone specific. But Melania, with her pride, rejected the idea. "I'm not lying to get out of this," she said, her voice cold as ice. By early morning, the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., buzzed with tension. Marble hallways echoed with hurried footsteps of lawyers, reporters, and court staff. Outside, crowds gathered, some holding signs supporting Jasmine Crockett, others waving posters defending Melania Trump. The first hearing of the $100 million defamation lawsuit drew national attention, turning the courtroom into a political stage where two powerful women faced off. In the oak-paneled room, with packed benches, Crockett sat at the plaintiff's table, her sharp black suit accentuating her confident demeanor, her gaze unwavering. Across the room, Melania Trump, in an elegant navy dress, maintained a calm exterior, but her tightly clasped hands betrayed tension, noticeable only to the observant. Vivian Carter, Crockett's veteran lawyer, stood first. With her silver hair tightly bunned and a voice sharp as a blade, she delivered her opening argument. "Your Honor, Mrs. Melania Trump deliberately used her position as First Lady to demean my client, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, before hundreds of witnesses at a public event. Her words were not just a personal insult, but a defamatory act aimed at undermining the political career of a Black woman who has overcome countless barriers. Carter displayed the Willard video on a screen, showing Melania's clear glance at Crockett as she delivered the harsh words. The courtroom buzzed, and some reporters scribbled furiously. Melania's legal team, led by Edward Langston, a renowned attorney with a calm demeanor and a perfectly tailored gray suit, launched a counterattack. Langston argued that Melania's remark was a general comment about valueless politicians, not specifically targeting Crockett. No specific name was mentioned, he said, his voice steady but persuasive. My client, Mrs. Trump, had no intent to harm anyone's reputation. The plaintiff's exaggeration of this matter is an attempt to gain political leverage. Langston presented a document asserting there was no clear evidence directly linking Melania's words to Crockett. But when the video was replayed, Melania's glance and the crowd's murmurs at the event seemed to undermine his argument. An unexpected twist shook the courtroom. Carter called a new witness, Lena Harper, a server at the Willard, who had recorded another video from an angle near the stage. In the footage, Melania was clearly seen whispering to an aide before speaking, and a nearby microphone inadvertently captured her saying, "Make sure everyone knows I'm talking about her." Harper, with disheveled red hair and a trembling voice, confirmed that her was none other than Crockett. The courtroom held its breath, and even Langston, typically unflappable, showed unease, hurriedly scribbling in his notebook. Crockett, sitting upright, her eyes fixed on Harper, felt a surge of adrenaline. She knew this video was a powerful blow, reinforcing the claim that Melania intentionally targeted her. Her experience as a public defender helped her recognize the value of such evidence. She glanced at Marcus Tate, her young legal aide, who gave a discreet smile, as if aware they had scored a crucial point. But Crockett also knew the fight wasn't over. Melania, though silent, was not one to yield easily. On the other side, Melania maintained her cool exterior, but inwardly, she grappled with a wave of emotions. Her legal team, backed by White House advisors, had warned that the lawsuit could damage her image long-term. During a break, Langston whispered to Melania, "We could countersue, accusing Crockett of exploiting the lawsuit for attention. But if the server's video is admitted, things will get tougher." Melania nodded slightly, her gaze sweeping the courtroom, pausing briefly on Crockett. She realized her opponent was not just a politician, but a battle-hardened warrior. Another development heightened the drama. During the break, a New York Times reporter approached Crockett's team, revealing that an anonymous White House source had provided internal emails in which advisor Rachel Klein suggested Melania should strike hard at a Democratic opponent to bolster her image. Though the email didn't name Crockett explicitly, it raised suspicions that the Willard attack was part of a calculated strategy. Carter quickly requested the court consider the email as additional evidence, putting Melania's team on the defensive. As the hearing continued, both sides deployed tactical moves. Carter emphasized the impact of Melania's words on Crockett's career, citing articles attacking her post-event. Langston, in contrast, tried to redirect by portraying Crockett as a controversy-seeking politician, chasing attention. But Crockett's steady, unflinching gaze seemed to send a clear message to Melania. She would not back down. Melania, surrounded by her powerful legal team, felt the weight of that stare. For the first time, she wondered if she had underestimated her opponent. The hearing concluded with a heavy atmosphere. The judge announced that the new evidence, particularly Harper's video and the White House email, would be reviewed. As the courtroom doors closed, Jasmine Crockett stepped out into Washington, D.C.'s pale sunlight, her eyes devoid of triumph. Though the first hearing tilted in her favor with the unexpected video and email, the pressure of the $100 million lawsuit weighed heavily. In the SUV driving her from the courthouse, Crockett stared out the window, her mind torn between resolve and nameless worries. She knew confronting Melania Trump was not just a legal battle, it was a psychological duel where every move could shape public perception. Meanwhile, miles away at the White House, Melania sat in a quiet room, her gaze somberly fixed on a family portrait. Both women, though on opposing sides, were navigating inner turmoil and personal strategies to weather this storm. For Crockett, the lawsuit was about more than restoring her honor. As a Black woman, she was accustomed to skeptical glances and whispered slurs on her journey from public defender to congresswoman. But this attack from a figure like Melania, a symbol of power, carried a greater responsibility. In a rare moment, alone in her small office, late at night, she flipped through an old photo of her mother, who once told her, "Never let anyone make you feel small." Those words fueled her. Yet she also received threatening messages from Trump supporters, with venomous words like, "Go back where you belong." Far from deterring her, these messages only strengthened her resolve. "They think I'll give up," she whispered to Marcus Tate, her legal aide, during a late-night call. "But I've come too far to stop." Crockett didn't rely solely on emotion. She crafted a sharp personal strategy, using the lawsuit to cement her image as an unrelenting fighter. She agreed to appear on an MSNBC interview, where she stressed that the lawsuit was about justice, not fame. "I don't need validation from people like Mrs. Trump," she said, her voice firm yet tinged with bitterness. "I'm suing so women like me don't have to endure public humiliation." Her words spread quickly, making her a symbol for many, especially communities of color. But Crockett knew every step was a double-edged sword. One misstep could paint her as a political opportunist. On the other side, Melania faced her own inner crisis. In her private White House room, she sat at her vanity, staring into the mirror without truly seeing herself. As First Lady, she had mastered hiding her emotions, but this lawsuit left her feeling exposed. Articles digging into her immigration past, from the EB-1 visa to her modeling days, revived painful memories of being deemed unworthy. She wondered if she had erred by letting emotion guide her at the Willard. But her pride and the pressure of her role as First Lady kept her from admitting fault. In a private moment, she confided to a friend from her modeling days, "I just wanted them to see I'm not weak." But now, things are spiraling out of control. Melania also devised her own strategy. She rejected advisor Mark Hensley's suggestion to negotiate with Crockett. "Settling is admitting I'm wrong," she said, her voice cold but faintly trembling. Instead, she instructed her legal team, led by Edward Langston, to prepare a stronger counterattack. They began digging into Crockett's past, searching for any details, old cases she handled or controversial statements that could undermine her credibility. But Melania knew this approach carried risks. If it failed, it could make her appear petty and aggressive. An unexpected encounter escalated tension. At another DC charity event, Crockett and Melania crossed paths in a narrow hallway. No reporters, no advisors, just the two women facing each other. Crockett, her gaze unwavering, said, "You thought calling me trash would silence me, but you were wrong." Melania, caught off guard by the directness, responded in a low voice, "I'm not afraid of you, Congresswoman, but you should be careful what you've started." The brief exchange, lasting only seconds, carried immense weight, like a duel without weapons. As Melania walked away, Crockett stood still, her heart pounding, but her resolve stronger than ever. Washington, D.C. remained abuzz with the fallout from the $100 million lawsuit between Jasmine Crockett and Melania Trump. As dusk settled, casting a gentle orange glow over the Capitol's domes, both women, a resolute Congresswoman and a proud First Lady, stood at a critical crossroads. The defamation lawsuit, sparked by a fleeting moment at the Willard, had grown beyond personal stakes, becoming a symbol of a larger battle over honor, power, and the responsibility of those at the pinnacle of politics. In the cold courtroom, under the gaze of the public and media, both Crockett and Melania fought not only for themselves, but for the values they represented. The outcome of this battle, though uncertain, promised to leave a lasting mark. Crockett, her heels clicking steadily in the courthouse halls, had become an icon to many. As a Black woman, she carried the expectations of marginalized communities who saw in her someone daring to challenge power. Each step in this lawsuit was a declaration no one could demean another without facing consequences. In her small office, amid stacks of files and cold coffee cups, Crockett often received letters from young people, especially Black women, thanking her for not backing down. One letter read, "You showed me I can fight too." Those words, though exhausting after long days in court, gave her the drive to continue. She vowed that if she won, the $100 million would fund legal education for disadvantaged youth. A commitment that not only bolstered her image, but turned the lawsuit into a cause for the community. Melania, in a quiet White House room, faced a different challenge. As First Lady, she was accustomed to staying above political fray, but this lawsuit thrust her into the spotlight. Articles relentlessly probed her immigration past, the EB-1 visa, and her role in the Trump administration. Though she maintained an unshakable facade, Melania couldn't deny the lawsuit had shaken the image she carefully crafted. In a private moment, standing before a large window overlooking the rose garden, she wondered if she could regain control. Her legal team, led by Edward Langston, was still working to turn the tide, but each new piece of evidence from Crockett's side, the video, the internal email, made that task harder. Melania, with the pride of someone who had overcome countless obstacles to reach her position, was determined not to be seen as a loser. This confrontation was not just a legal battle, but a clash of two worlds. Crockett, with her journey from public defender to congresswoman, represented those who fought for a seat at the table. Melania, from Slovenia to the heights of power, carried the weight of an often misunderstood icon. Their unexpected encounter in the charity event hallway, where they exchanged sharp words, showed that this was not just a lawsuit, it was personal, with neither willing to yield. But both knew the lawsuit's outcome would not only shape their personal images, but could change how public figures behave in the future. The lawsuit sparked a broader societal debate. Pundits on networks from MSNBC to Fox News argued over its implications. Was this a step toward holding the powerful accountable, or a political stunt for attention? A Harvard law professor commented on CNN, "This case could set a new precedent for defamation in politics, forcing figures like Mrs. Trump to weigh their words." Meanwhile, Trump supporters called Crockett an opportunist, claiming she was using the lawsuit to boost her profile. But regardless of the outcome, the battle sent a powerful message. No one, no matter their position, could escape the consequences of their words. As hearings continued, both Crockett and Melania prepared for their next moves. Crockett, backed by her legal team and community, remained steadfast, but she knew pressure from Trump supporters would only intensify. Melania, surrounded by powerful advisors and lawyers, felt increasingly isolated, especially as some close to her began doubting their chances of winning. This battle, whatever its outcome, had already reshaped how both were perceived. Crockett became a symbol of resilience, a woman daring to challenge power. Melania, though at a disadvantage, remained a first lady not easily defeated. The lawsuit was not just about $100 million, it was about honor, about who would write the final story. The story of the confrontation between Jasmine Crockett and Melania Trump in the $100 million defamation lawsuit in Washington, D.C., reflects deep social and political tensions in American life today, particularly around issues of personal responsibility, power, and polarization. This legal battle, stemming from Melania's public insult at the Willard and Crockett's fierce response, is not just political drama but a mirror to how individuals confront injustice and defend honor in a society divided by race, gender, and power. The details of Crockett, a black woman, resolutely suing Melania for calling her trash, highlight the strength of standing against humiliation, especially in a context where minority communities in America often face prejudice. Conversely, Melania's decision, though driven by pressure to bolster her First Lady image, reveals the danger of careless words from those in power. Their unexpected hallway encounter at a charity event, where they exchanged sharp words, underscores that the confrontation is not just legal but deeply personal. Reflecting a reality in America, public conflicts often carry profound emotional and reputational consequences. The lesson is that in a polarized society like America today, every word and action can have significant consequences, especially when they touch on sensitive issues like race or power. Crockett teaches us that defending honor requires courage and strategy, but also restraint to avoid being swept into a cycle of retaliation. Melania reminds us that even the powerful must be accountable for their words. To apply this to life, be cautious in communication, especially on public platforms, and always be ready to stand up for yourself intelligently, as Crockett did, without letting emotions override reason. Thank you for following the dramatic saga between Crockett and Melania. Hit subscribe to stay updated on the next developments. See you in the next video, where we'll explore who will emerge victorious in this legal battle.